You're listening to the Guitar Heroes podcast.
Chris is hosting. God help us.
Well, hello and a very warm welcome to episode 7 of the Guitar Heroes podcast. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. And as always, I have with me Mr. Phil Walker. Do you want to give us a little play?
Yeah, man.
And Mr. Lee Williams.
Well, that's orange juice, and it's in a glass. I've got my usual Tia Maria plant-based coffee with a Christmas mug, and it sounds like this.
Sorry, I'm just joking. So I've traded a guitar for a continental breakfast today.
Is that sausage roll?
It's a croissant, courtesy of a fantastic baker just up the road from me. I think it's Lydell's. Lydell's, have you ever been there?
Lydell's?
No? Lydell's? No. Well, you should check it out.
Is it near Tesco?
No.
Then
It's big blue and yellow place. Massive. Really cheap in there. Really cheap.
I've lost interest now.
And, of course, Chris. Chris is here as well. So
I might actually give you a bit of guitar. I'm not going to. I can't compete with the slurping you guys have you've offered today. It's pretty good.
Anyway, Chris, what we're doing today?
Well, before we jump in, I just thought to see how you guys are doing. Have you all had a good week? Been up to anything interesting?
I think so. Well, it's been a bit of a funny week for me because my cat went in hospital.
Oh no!
She had an operation on her eye, and we basically just got to keep an eye. No pun intended. We've got to watch her, keep an eye on her 24 hours a day. She's got to wear one of those lampshades. She looks like the Pixar lamp. But it's like so. Oh, she's mischievous. She's a bit of an outdoor cat. She loves going outdoors, and she's been headbutting the cat flap, and she's been going insane. But I think tomorrow she's allowed out. So it's been and my dog wet the bed.
Oh no, makes a change from you wetting the bed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Other than Jamie, everyone in your household is going downhill.
I know. I know. Well, I've been going downhill since I hit 40, so I'm not sure I'll make 50 if I'm honest.
We'll see. How about yourself, Lee? You had a good week?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. Just enjoying getting in the Christmas spirit. We're
Absolutely.
A week into December now, so yeah, drinking snowballs and eating mince pies, and weather's been quite nice. And I haven't caught the man flu that Phil promised me last week.
Only lasted a day.
Did it?
I don't understand. Yeah. I felt quite ill. I mean, not that I'm one to complain about my illnesses, as you know, but I felt terrible for a day. Absolutely terrible. Couldn't shake the headache or anything, and sore throat. And then next day I woke up, I was fine.
No, you didn't look right in last week's episode.
I thought it was the lighting. Anyway.
But it's nice to see that you've come fully clothed today, which does make a change.
It does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to go out. I've got to be somewhere at midday, so I had to get dressed now. I didn't want to forget and go streaking down the road.
Especially when we get into video in these podcasts, it's probably a good idea you get used to dressing for them, I think.
And it's cold out
It depends where we put them.
That's true. That's true.
How are you, Chris?
I'm all right. Not too bad. Been doing a lot of recording this week and teaching guitar. So keeping musically active.
Wow, you've been doing some music.
Yeah, no gigs, unfortunately, yet. But just trying to keep musically active, just recording, doing whatever I can, really.
Yeah.
I've got a gig on Saturday.
Have you?
Mm.
Well, it's not with us.
In fact, I've got a gig every week until Christmas now.
Really?
Yeah.
Where are such things happening? This is unknown.
They are where the virus is most susceptible. Warners.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I got Warners this week, and then I'm playing in London the week after, and then Christmas Eve I'm back at Warner's again.
Christmas Eve. You love a Christmas Eve gig, don't you? You're always out on Christmas
It's really
Eve.
festive. I do like that. Yeah, I've got to admit, I do like a festive gig. Mm.
I don't think I've ever worked Christmas Eve. Obviously, we've all
Have you
done
not?
New Year's Eve, but I don't think I've done Christmas Eve. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. Is it a different
Hmm.
atmosphere to New Year's Eve?
Um,
I guess it's
Yeah.
not quite as party central.
Yeah. I mean, Christmas has always been a big thing in my house.
Mm.
We even when I lived 300 miles away from my parents, we always managed to get it together at Christmas, and
Yeah.
it's always been a big thing. And we always used to gig at Christmas as well. Me and my dad, when I was in my teens 100 years ago, we used to do the working men's clubs. That's he's up north.
Oh, yeah.
And Christmas Eve we always worked, and it was always really festive. It was always a really nice atmosphere. I mean, it's not so much now. I think I don't know. I think the jollities are kind of slipping a little bit. Don't know. What do you think?
I just figured that Christmas Eve's an interesting one for a party because I don't know about you, but I don't want a hangover with my Christmas dinner.
That's true.
No.
Christmas dinner is the king of all dinners, as we all know, and yeah.
And do you know what?
Yeah.
For me, it's later on on Christmas Day, all the leftover food, like the buffet, in the evening, the cheese, the pork, and all the leftover turkey, and
That leftover sandwich is just about the best thing.
turkey
you get all
sandwiches
year.
with cranberry, and oh my goodness.
Is this a
We
guitar
don't get
podcast?
leftover turkey.
It's a
Well, I
turkey
found that with my
podcast.
YouTube channel. Most of the time, I'm talking about food.
Well, we had Richmond sausages. Yeah.
Right, what are we talking about? What's going on?
Okay. Well, today, I thought we're gonna theme the episode around single coil classics. So we're gonna go with the Fender Stratocaster and the Telecaster. I was gonna say Strat and Tele, but then there are probably listeners who are going, "What's a Strat?" So full name's probably more relevant. And I know it's a bit of a fruitless task trying to compare the two because, they're both so very different and they're fantastic in their own right. However, I thought we could have a bit of fun firing off a few reasons as to which of the two we prefer. So prior to this podcast episode, I asked you both maybe to grab either a Tele or a Strat and give us a few reasons as to why you've chosen that. And see which is your favorite, really. It'd be kind of an interesting conversation, I think. So... and obviously these can just be through playability, your connection to the instrument, anything really, anything goes. So I think I'm going to hand this over to Phil to begin with. So, enlighten
Okay,
Phil.
okay. Well, most people that know me or look at social media or anything like that, they'll all know that I have my favourite. And I've talked about it on this podcast. I've got my number one Fender Stratocaster that I got in 1986 when I was 54. No, when I was 11.
You beat us to it.
I love how you're playing on this.
I was sort of
Rose.
getting there before you.
It's
Yeah.
brilliant.
And I always wanted a Strat. The Strat was the guitar for me. I listened to, I was like, on the previous podcast, or maybe one before that, I talked about Eddie Cochran was a massive influence. Well, so was Hank Marvin and Mark Knopfler. So I always wanted a Fender Strat. And I always wanted a red one. And I remember for my birthday one year, it might have been about 8 or 9 or something. My mum and dad bought me this Fender Stratocaster copy. And it even said Fender Stratocaster copy on the headstock. It was hilarious. And it was silver, and my dad sprayed it red. He got some car paints and sprayed it red and lacquered it for me. And I loved it. It was brilliant. I was Hank Marvin then. And then, obviously, I got the real deal when I was 11, and it's pretty much my main guitar ever since. And I've actually, I think, had more Telecasters than I've had Strats, believe it or not. And I own 2 Telecasters now, but I've had a Telecaster that used to belong to Albert Lee, which I really regret getting rid of, and so wish I hadn't have done. I'm still looking for that guitar as well. Loads of different Tele. I've had a 74. I love Telecasters. In fact, my favourite Telecaster I own at the minute is a Brad Paisley signature model. I love that. In fact, Lee, you sold me that.
I know it well. I know it well.
Yeah, you sold me. I was so excited when I got a text from Lee when it arrived at Absolute Music, and he just sent me a little picture of the body. It was like it's just fraction. It was like the silver, and I think I was down there in 5 minutes.
Well, we ordered it for you specifically, didn't we? Because
Yeah.
you knew it was. I think you knew that it was coming out before I even knew. You were like, "Have you got the Brad Paisley Tele in yet?" And I said, "Huh? What?" And then I looked online. Oh, the new guitar that's on its way. So yeah, we got the order in, and you were the first one into the store to collect it, and you did. You came over like in a flash when I said it's here. He was through the door before I think I'd put the phone down. And
It's
but that's a
it's
nice
on
guitar.
YouTube.
Yeah,
I did a YouTube
is.
video, so
Yes.
if anybody wants to check that out on Phil Walker Guitarist on YouTube, it's on there.
Wonderful.
But yeah, so the Strat's been my main guitar. I love Telecasters. I love Telecaster players, and I love playing Telecasters. But the Strat for me is the main thing, and I've done a few little. I've done a little dirty mod on my Strat as well, which I'm going to just play it briefly.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Phil.
which is-
Before you play it, perhaps put it into the setting that you love. Like, you
Oh,
pick up your
right.
Strat and you're just going to have a bit of a noodle at home for purely just for
Okay.
enjoyment, not practicing a song. I want to hear where you're going to go with your pickup selector, tone, that kind of thing.
Well, I quite like country playing. I've done for years, ever since I was into Albert Lee. But what I've done, another little cheeky mod, is I've wired I haven't. Robin at Absolute did. He wired the bridge pickup to the tone control, and on a Strat for me that is invaluable because otherwise you get it sounds really bright. So what I do, I wind it back to about 4 and. And it kind of, it doesn't make it like a humbucker, but it certainly helps. It stops it having that that.
Yeah.
Takes a bit of the edge off.
It stops your eyeballs rolling, doesn't it? Just to wind it back a little bit. And that works really well. When I wind that back to 4, it seems to even it up with the neck pickup on this. It's got original pickups. So if I've got the tone wound back now. When I put it in the neck, whereas if the bridge is the tone's full, it's a bit mismatched. It's a bit duller as the neck pickup,
Oh, I see.
whether that's age.
So just using that tone, you've got a bit more balance between the two.
Yeah, exactly. But the other little cheeky mod before I hand it over to somebody else is Robin put a little switch in here, and it's a force on the bridge. So when I've got the neck pickup on, which sounds like this, if I hit this switch, it forces the bridge pickup on, and you get this.
Telecaster.
A Telecaster, yeah. And also, if you put the selector switch in the middle and neck position, which I believe is position 4, I believe, or which way around do you look at it? Yeah, position 4. You get all 3 on, which sounds like this. Which is just another little different tonal thing, and so which means I can use this guitar for absolutely anything, and I do.
So yeah, very versatile then in that respect. But obviously, you mentioned last time, I don't know if you're going to bring that up, Lee, but about modifying guitars in the last episode and how much you were so against it. But obviously, with this, you're not replacing anything, are you? You're just making modifications to what's already there.
Exactly,
Is that right?
exactly. And I did say that I've replaced the saddles and the nuts, and it's been rewired because it had to be, because otherwise it wouldn't be playable. Yeah. And the little mod switch, that little switch in there, I've probably had in the guitar for 20 years. I got it done a long, long time ago. Purely because I didn't want to. I love playing country music, and I love the Telecaster sound, and I didn't want to be carting loads of guitars around with me.
Of course.
A lot of venues that you used to play, pubs and clubs and things like that, you didn't want to take loads of gear because you turn around for a split second and something's gone. What I mean? So the guitar used to go to the toilet with me, and still does.
Well, it still does, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Still goes to bed with you, I think.
Pretty much. Well, yeah. I mean, it never stays in the truck or anything like that. It goes with me everywhere. And I used to fly this guitar. When I was in a show called Route 66, we went all over the place, Latvia, and all over the place we went. And I took this guitar with me, and I just used to throw it in the hold. And looking back, I was like, oh, what was I doing? You know, I mean, yeah, if this guitar got nicked, I'd probably go be a bin man or something. You know, I wouldn't want to carry on.
That'd be it.
That's it. I'm done.
Well, that leads
obviously-
nicely into my question about that guitar, because it's obvious that you have a strong connection with that specific guitar. But I wonder, does that mean that you would pick, like, that guitar aside, are you still a Strat guy? Because it seems to me you're very specific that it's that guitar. But if you walked into a shop and if that guitar had never existed, would you gravitate towards a Strat or a Tele? Because, like you say, you do play a lot of country and you're into a lot of Telecaster players, more so than probably I am. So I if I looked at your music collection, I might think, this guy's a Tele guy. But what would you reckon?
Fair point. That's a fair point. Yeah,
That's
another
very good-
reason why I
very
was
good
into
point, Lee.
Telecasters was status quo.
Yes.
Love them or hate them.
Yeah.
I love them. You know, they're brilliant. So yeah, I was that's why I've had so many Telecasters. I guess I'd always been looking for the right Telecaster, but I don't think any guitar is going to be the right guitar because I've got this one. You know, every
course,
other guitar is a
that's-
second.
Exactly. Any guitar that comes along now has got the hard job of trying to supersede like 30 years of, relationship, because you grow with a guitar, don't you? But
Yeah,
I see you're
absolutely.
so attached to that Strat, but I just wonder whether any other Strat would. I don't think any other Strat would do it, and that may be why you enjoy playing other Telecasters.
I've
and not
got
other
another
Strats.
one.
Okay.
I've got another one. I've got it's my Fiesta Red 50s classic Strat.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
And that gets used a lot in the first half in the guitar show.
Yeah.
That really is a good Strat. There's a lot of the Mexican ones are kind of hit and miss. You know, you get some good ones, you get a lot of bad ones. This one is an absolute corker. It's really, really good. It's nice to play. It sounds good. The trem is a dream. And then I've got, well, like I said, I've got a few Strats, and then I've got a 79 Strat, an original one, which I'm selling. I'm not attached to it. It's probably worth the most. But I'm like, well, I'll move it on, and I want to get something else. So
That's a nice guitar. That is mint as well. Anyone out
It
there
is.
listening?
I can't
Send
believe
me
it.
an email
It looks
if you're
it looks
interested.
brand new, doesn't it?
it is, yeah. But I've got my eye on another Strat actually. That
Oh,
I'm
okay.
thinking of getting. So, but I do need to move that on to get it.
Okay.
So obviously with the Strat's obviously such a unique guitar because of obviously we spoke about this in a couple of episodes ago where the Strat obviously started only with a 3-way switch, but then had the in and out of phase positions, positions 2 and 4. So again, that adds to the Strat's uniqueness that no other guitar really has. I know there are like humbucker guitars with the split coils that have all the multiple positions, but nothing quite does it like a Strat. Those in-between positions is that unique voice of a Strat, and that for a fuzz or something like that, is, I suppose, that specific sound that you can only get with a Strat, really.
But you could do any gig with a Strat, haven't you? I mean, you've got bridge position, neck position, middle, out the in-between positions. What can't you do with a Strat?
Yeah, you're very, very much right there. How about yourself, Lee? What have you chose today?
I'm sat here with my Strat today. And I think if I was forced into a choice, if I walked into a guitar store and had to buy one guitar, Strat or a Tele, I think I would lean more towards a Strat, like Phil. However, I'm always flip-flopping, and I seem to always go through phases. Like, I'm on a Tele month this month, or I'm on a Les Paul this month. You just go through those phases, and right now, the Telecaster that you guys can see behind me, that is what I'm playing the most. I think I pulled it out because we were doing the 50s podcast a few weeks ago, and since then, it's been my go-to, and I love the simplicity of a Telecaster. Just that, no frills. It's such a nice guitar to play. I actually play it unplugged all the time as well. It's just really, really resonant. It's got something solid and reassuring, almost acoustic. It's not acoustic, obviously, but that chunky slab of a body, it's just nice to sit with. And I find different guitars bring out different sides of your playing, and you tend to do different things. So I find I pick up different guitars depending on what type of playing I want to do.
Okay,
And
so
for me, a Strat is home, but I tend to, if I pick up my Strat, I tend to noodle, and I maybe fall into old habits and just run around the same rings. But when I pick up the Tele, I play it differently. I see it like a very different guitar.
So you get called up for a gig, and you've only got time to grab one guitar for that gig. It's like a last minute thing. You've got 5 minutes to grab all your gear. You're going to pick up either one of those single coil guitars. Which one do you grab? You don't hesitate at grabbing. You know, it's like, oh, that one might be good. You just go, I know that's going to just do the job regardless. I don't know what gig I'm turning up to. It could be jazz, rock, or anything, but you've got to choose one.
Okay, well, then I guess it would be the Strat. It's a pretty easy answer because I've done exactly that for the last few years in my work doing top 40 type stuff, and you know we all know the types of gigs where you have to play like Bruno Mars and Maroon 5, but then you're playing like Free and Led Zeppelin in the same set, and the Strat's the one. And actually I would always take my Strat, and for some reason the Telecaster would always be the workhorse backup because I know I could always rely on it if I ever broke a string, or if I ever got to a gig and the setup had got like, you know, the bridge had moved on my Strat or whatever. The Tele's just going to be rock solid. In fact, the Tele has been in storage for best part of like the whole of lockdown this year, because I was moving house and a load of stuff went into storage, and I pulled that Telecaster out probably a month ago, having not seen it for nearly 6 months. Still got the same strings on it, and actually it plays. Nothing's changed. The strings I gave them, they're elixirs as well, so they're long life strings, but I gave them a quick wipe down, and it's just bang on. I think it was still in tune, and that is what
Crazy,
right?
I'm
so torn because it's like picking between children. I don't have children, but like that saying, can't pick between you. Oh, did I hear a doorbell?
Someone's at the door again.
Do you time this, Phil?
It seems to be like
you'd think so, wouldn't you? Yeah, you would think so, but no, I don't. No, the dog's in the studio with me, and he's heard the doorbell as well, and he's going, oh, I've got to get out.
That's because he knows it's a pizza that's just turned up.
Yeah, Papa John's has just turned up.
So
Okay,
yeah,
so
I think I would. I think I would go with the Strat. It's been my number one, and the Tele's been a faithful backup. But the best answer for me, a bit like the P bass versus the jazz bass, you got to have both, as we all do. They're just such.
But this is what I said.
Guitars,
yeah.
You know?
This is what I said at the beginning. It's really hard. It's very much a fruitless task trying to compare the two because they're so different. They both offer something completely different. Like you said, Lee, they make you play differently when you pick up either one of them. Put you into a different mindset as a guitar player, and yeah, trying to compare them is a very difficult task. But obviously, it just comes down to kind of what you really kind of prefer at the end of the day. And so, when you pick up your Strat, like I asked with Phil, like I'm just interested just to see what sort of kind of go-to tone you will go to. Do you keep everything wide open, or which pickup configuration do you favor?
Well, it depends on the sound. Like now, I've got a kind of a driven. I always just stay on the bridge pickup. I'm really simplistic. I think my ideal guitar should actually be something like a Les Paul Jr. I think what it is I came from playing humbucker guitars. I grew up on my first guitar was a Squier Strat, but beyond that it went pretty quickly into SGs and Les Paul type guitars, PRSs, that kind of thing. So I think, and a lot of my work is loosely in a rock band context. So I think I still crave that kind of. I always look.
Do you have the tone wired up to the bridge?
I do exactly the same as you. Yeah. For exactly the same reasons that you said. It balances everything out and stops it sounding too spiky when you overdrive it. But
you can almost get a bit of a humbuckery type.
You can
type sound. If I'll just switch my distorter on. If you've got the old, and then you wind it back. Do you know what I mean? It almost you could be fooled, couldn't you? I think.
Definitely.
Well, actually, I have the tone on my Strat, which should be wired to the bridge. I actually have as a blend knob. So when I'm on my bridge pickup on my Strat, I can blend the neck into the bridge, a bit like what you're doing on yours, Phil. with that switch that you have. It's just to take.
But you've
that
got a blend rather than a switch.
Yeah, so I can blend as much of that neck pickup as I want into the bridge, just to give it a bit more fatness, and it does give you that Tele-esque quality, I suppose.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've never been a
definitely.
big fan of the Strat bridge sound. It's just to me just a bit spiky and just I'm not a fan. But obviously you like that, Lee, and like it sounds great when you're playing. You know.
Well, I look for it. I look, and I don't. I must admit, I probably look for a darker bridge sound because I know that when I play most of what I play, I mean, I love Strat clean sounds. I was just, if you could see me trying to reach over to my Helix there, I love the whole. There's real glassy sounds, and of course all those real stratty, like you say, the in-between sounds, the 2 and the 4. But I
it's
rarely
the funk. It's the funk machine, is it?
Absolutely.
Position 4. It's the funk. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
whole
all that,
Nile
but I
Rodgers
just
thing.
rarely get to use
That
it.
reminds me of a movie I once watched. Won't talk about it though.
Yeah, I love it all, but I just find that like on a working gig, I rarely get to use that. I guess maybe it's just the type of work I do, but I rarely get to use those sounds. So I tend to play with those sounds more at home. When I'm gigging, it's probably almost more trying to sound like an SG or something like that. So I'm usually on, even for lead stuff, I don't like the neck pickup to get too muddy. I like almost staying on the bridge pickup and maybe knocking the tone back a little bit. Or I tend to...
Maybe you're a P90 guy.
Maybe.
I do like a P90. I tend to dial my drive sounds quite smooth and quite kind of dark anyway. So actually, for bridge pickups, like
the P90s they're very single core like, aren't they? But they just compress a little bit more at the top end, I find. But yeah, I love P90s.
I know what I was going to say. You just reminded me of that, and this is a really unusual thing that I've seen. It was on was it Netflix? Or it might be Amazon. Can't remember. There's a Les Paul tribute concert, and there's Lukather on there with his '59 Les Paul. There's Neil Sean's on there, and then Joe Satriani is on there playing a Les Paul with P90s on it. He's doing Satch Boogie, playing it's a Les Paul. Is it the special? I think. Like the yellow one. We was playing Satch Boogie with P90s, and I've got to be honest, it sounds better than that. Than that thing he plays, the JS nonsense, whatever it is.
You're listening to the Guitar Heroes podcast.
So, Chris, tell us about your love affair between Strats and Teles.
Okay, well, between my arms, I have a 2003 Highway 1 Texas edition Telecaster. So, yeah, it's quite nice. It's got a nitro finish and everything, and but I chose this one over my Strat. It was a really hard decision. The reason I kind of brought this up as a theme for today's podcast is a student asked me, they were looking to buy a single core guitar. They were like looking at between a Strat and a Tele, and I had to really think about giving them advice on what to go for. And as I really thought about it, I come to the conclusion that I love my Tele more than the Strat. And as you guys know, obviously this guitar started out in 1950, right, with the Esquires prototype. And do you know what? I think they got it right back in the day, straight out the gate. I think they got it right, and even to this day, it's still pretty much the same as what they were doing back then. I don't think really much has changed, to be honest. Just development in pickups and things like that, obviously. But with this thing plugged into my Princeton, touch of reverb, literally, that equals Chrissy in heaven. But I think, as you touched upon this earlier, Lee, I think I love the simplicity of this guitar. Like, just there's no thrills to it or anything. Like the edges, they're not curved or anything to rest nicely into your body. It's all kind of sharp edges and stuff, and just a massive block of wood, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
But I love the simplicity, and like with the bridge plate, there's no whammy bar. I find when I'm on a Strat, anytime I play like a chord, I'm always there, like kind of.
I do too.
I don't have a whammy bar to give an example.
Hang on, I got tremolo on.
Should I do it then?
Go on, you.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
But I find like it's nice because you can musically express yourself a little bit more. But I often find myself doing all the time. It's almost like a bad habit. I'll play something and always finish off a phrase with the whammy bar just because it's there.
Yeah.
And I love with this, there's nothing to hide behind. It's all very open with the sounds, and obviously between the neck and the bridge pickup. Obviously the bridge pickup, unlike on the Strat, it has like a brass plate underneath, which gives it that real fat, rock sound. And obviously between the two pickups, obviously there's a huge like dynamic range, full frequency range, which makes it very versatile. And I would feel very confident turning up to any gig, whether that's jazz, rock, country, blues, and feel confident I could do that gig with no compromise with this guitar. Obviously,
you couldn't turn up to a porn session though, could you?
I could.
You couldn't do that.
Well, but obviously, there's a huge misconception that this is a country guitar, and it can't be further from the truth. To be honest, I think I can give some examples. I've just set up one sound on here, a full-on Marshall sound, and that bridge pickup sound for me is just I love it. And on the bridge pickup of a Strat, to me, like I mentioned earlier, it just sounds really thin and spiky, and without doing any modifications to it or rolling off the tone, you can't really tame it. I'm not a fan of that bridge sound on a Strat. And when I get onto my Les Paul, even with the bridge on that, I find like I want a bit more top end to the sound, a bit more brightness.
I was just playing devil's advocate there to say it doesn't sound thin.
Yeah, but it's just a spikiness, a harshness to the top end, which I don't really like. And it's just
you haven't got your tone control wired up to it, though, have you?
No, but I got the neck. But obviously on previous Strats and things, it's kind of I've experienced it on previous Strats I've owned. I've just never really been a fan, to be honest. And I always avoid that bridge pickup. Even when I play rock, I'll go into like position. Is it position 2? Yeah. So
the Brian May sound.
Yeah, I'll always jump onto that, But on the Tele, just for me, just sounds nice and full. It's got a nice. The top end isn't spiky to me, and just sounds great. And if you want to play like jazz on this as well, you could just jump straight to the neck pickup, roll the volume off.
You're not going to play any jazz, are you?
I'll play a little bit jazz for you. You like jazz?
Are we rolling into Chris's corner here? Because jazz is only allowed in Chris's corner.
I'm going to go to the loo then.
But just to give an example of how clean, it cleans up. Sounds great.
Hang on,
and
Phil,
if
Phil's just been sick. Sorry, bear with us, folks. Phil's just.
Sorry, I thought I was in a lift. Then I thought I was in an elevator.
But I'm very interested in like guitar harmony, like chords and things like that. And I've always liked jazz guitar players like Mike Stern, and turning up to a gig to do jazz with a Strat just for me visually doesn't look right either. But the Tele, you get away with it because there are jazz guitar players who use the Tele. And it cleans up really nice and does the job really well. And I think you can also play a bit of funk on this as well. Middle pickup, you have to clean up a fair bit. But again, remember my gain is wide open on this. Just as a reference. So I'm on the middle pickup here. Let's see. Sounds pretty cool.
You could get away with that. I mean, that to me is more like a sort of like a Chinese copy porn movie sound. Is that?
It's fine. We like Chinese coffees.
Yeah.
But if you had to get away with it, you could do it. And then obviously you got the. I love the Rolling Stones, and that. It just got a fat rock sound, and I just think you could do most things with this, and obviously a bit of country. I don't play much country, but obviously I'd have to clean up a little bit. Let's see. Brad Paisley, obviously, an incredible guitar player for the Telecaster, which you mentioned earlier, Phil. And
But he does not play with a clean sound.
he doesn't
Brad
play
Paisley.
with a clean sound.
Oh,
No.
he's as dirty as it gets. Yeah, I mean, his earlier stuff. Yeah, he's got the very he's got a very sort of cleanish sound. I haven't really got a sound set up for this, but he's like nowadays. He's he's got quite a dirty sound on there, which again proves the Telecaster's versatile enough to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, and just for me, I just love the magic and the charm of a Telecaster. Just again, the simplicity for me. I just think more about what I'm playing rather than all the thrills that it offers and all the variety of tones and everything.
I think we're proving that you can split hairs over these guitars, but actually we
absolutely
just love them both. Like really, they're more similar than they are different, aren't they? Because let's face it, they're both Leo Fender designs. And did you know that the Strat actually literally came out of the Telecaster? So in terms of its body, I forget the name, but there's a story of a guy. So when Leo made the Tele and the Esquire, it was being passed around guitar playing circles. This is the early 50s. The Esquire came out in 1950 and Telecaster 1952. He passed it around guitar playing circles, and someone actually took a chisel and a hammer to it and said, "This is great, but it's not that comfortable. Could you do something like this?" And he'd actually taken some pieces of wood out the back and on the arm contour. And Leo looked at it, and that's where the original contour body came from on the Strat.
Wow.
Having the extended access up the top with a double cutaway, and he smoothed out those designs, so you got the tummy cut and the arm cut, and so they're more similar than they are different. That's what I always used to say to people, when they would ask me, which one do you go for? Well, in terms of like a Tele or a Strat versus a Les Paul, now that's a bigger difference. But these two,
of course,
same
as far as
same scale
length guitars go, I'd always say own both.
Yeah, I mean,
because,
the feel thing is quite different. I find it quite different jumping between different scale lengths. But when you get used to a Fender guitar, you can jump between a Tele and a Strat pretty easy. Both same scale length. The wood choices are the same. Weight-wise, there's not a huge difference. Like everything's in the same place. The tone controls, the volume controls, the tuning layout sits aside. There's more similarities there, but they're
absolutely.
I think the Tele is the cooler. Like you were saying, Chris, I think there's looking at my old relic Tele there. There's nothing cooler than like a low
ton of
slung.
mojo there, isn't there? And,
if I didn't have to
I
play,
don't know. What about 62 Fiesta Red Strat? That's
stop, Phil.
used?
Stop. I love one of those.
Tissues, please.
I don't think. I think any guitar, and I can say this because I cannot wear my guitar low. I have to wear my guitar high like a nerd. I just can't play low. But I think guitars that are low just look cool, and I don't think a Strat looks right when it's worn too low because of all those.
Oh, I don't know. Look at Josh Klingelhoff and off on her.
Yeah, no, I don't think it looks
he
right.
Looks quite
it
cool,
looks like it doesn't
you know?
fit because it's so obviously shaped for your sort of, your torso area. That when
so
it's
basically,
not
you're
there...
saying fat people play Strats. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that a Telecaster, in a la Bruce Springsteen, slung low and worn heavy, relict and just gnarly look. It's just so cool. It's just so cool.
Yeah,
Love
that
it.
Keith Richards wearing it, he doesn't wear it too high. Just where he's got it just looks awesome. And even as old as he is, Phil, you're similar of age, and
Well, it's the thing, isn't it? I mean, you gotta be. I'm with Greta Thunderclap out there because you got to make sure that the world is a better place because you're leaving it to me and Keith Richards.
Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to jump into Chris's corner.
Okay.
Actually,
wow.
Regarding
Can
the
I
Telecaster.
say it?
Yes, please do.
Can I say it? Cue the music.
Chris's corner.
So, programming sounds for talking about the episode last week where we used the Line 6 for programming sounds, and I'm sat there with my Les Paul trying to get the Jimmy Page sound, and just can't quite get it. I don't know what it is. I'm listening to the records going, I don't know. I'm on the bridge pick of my my Les Paul, and it's not hasn't got that nice brightness that he's got on the record and stuff. And obviously, after speaking to you, Phil, it turns out that Jimmy Page actually uses the Telecaster a lot, and for the first album, Led Zeppelin 1.
Zeppelin 1, yep.
Stairway to Heaven solo, and so it turns out, the Telecaster has sold more Les Pauls than the Les Paul itself.
Well, that's really funny because we do we have a Les Paul section in the story of Guitar Heroes, and Jimmy Page is in the Les Paul section, but the actual song that we do, which is Kashmir, was played on a Dan Electro. But we put it in for it's all a little bit mixed up, but it makes sense when you watch it, when you watch the show. But if you're going to get down to the nitty gritty of it all,
of course,
yeah,
it's quite funny, but it's amazing. The solo to Stairway to Heaven is such a classic, and and it's done on a Tele, proves it's a complete rocking machine. So and what you're thinking is a Les Paul into Marshall is really like a Tele or a Dan Electro into a Supro. So.
You've ruined the illusion, Chris.
I know, just bringing truth to our fans, that's all.
But don't you think it's amazing that something that is now 70 years old is still like the pinnacle of its industry? How many other items can you think of that really the design, like you said, Chris, the design hasn't changed? Yes, there are now other options. So if you want a modernized Tele, or if you want a modernized Strat, or if you want noiseless pickups or lock-in tuners, there's like those tweaks. But actually, the original version hasn't been discontinued. The actual most popular, best-selling is just the standard option, the Fender standard Strat, Fender standard Tele. I can't think of any other industry, any other product where the iteration that people are still lusting over today is the same one that they were lusting over 70 years ago. I literally can't think. I've tried. I can't think of anything.
Oh, and that leads me into a rant then.
Oh, well, here we go. Cue the music.
Phil's rant. Phil's rant. So, I did have another rant planned for today, but you've just brought another rant up. Maybe I should save my rant for another episode, the one that I was going to say.
We know you're never short of rants, Phil.
Oh, yeah. So I'm short of pants, that's why I never wear any. Anyway. So yeah, my rant a little bit about this is what Lee, you were saying there. They do different variations, and what I mean, what is it now? The Fender standard Strat or Telecaster now is the Performer Limited Lightning Edition Series Cornflake model, or something stupid.
Batman
right?
symbol.
Is it the Performer model, and then they had another model. Professional.
We've got the Professional 2s now. The Ultras.
What's wrong with the standard Strat? Why did they change it?
I can tell you if you want to continue ranting, go for it. But
please tell me.
I know the
answers.
I don't
see the point.
I know the answers. It was It was a corporate restructuring. It was a marketing decision. It's simple as that. It was just a business decision. Fender. Yeah, it really was. It really was nothing to do with any benefit to the instrument itself. It was purely a sales and a marketing based idea. Fender and I must admit I agree with part of it. So Fender had a big reshuffle a few years back when they started changing all the names of their guitars. What they wanted to do, because they've got such a massive product range, right from a Squire Bullet at like £99 all the way up to custom shop master builds at $5,000 plus, and almost every price point, like you can go up in £50 increments and they'll pretty much be a Fender guitar for you. If you've got $350 to spend, $400, $450, $500, it's not like there's like 5 models to pick from anymore. And what they felt was that the word standard was being reused. So you had the Squire standard, you had the standard. It was people call it the Mexican standard because it was built in Mexico, but it's to them it was just the Fender standard at about £500. Then you've got the American standard. Then you had standard being used in custom shop as well, and each range sort of mimicked itself depending on where it was built. So you had Squire Deluxe, you had Fender Deluxe, which was Mexican, you had American Deluxe, and it just got a bit confusing. I used to get people coming in all the time going, well, that one's standard and it's £1,100, that one's standard and it's 500 quid. And also, I think they didn't like the word standard. They were saying we're better than standard. When you're spending 1,200 quid on a guitar, it's the word standard these days doesn't really represent something that is at the peak of its, it's kind of like the bog standard. So they restructured it so that there was no repetition in the words. It went from Squire all the way up. You got standard, which is the Mexican one, and then you got up through deluxe, player, professional, elite. So they're all the guitars.
I've got to be honest. If I had a guitar company, I'd make it easy. I'd start at the turd and work my way up to the glitter bogey.
Phil would have
Do you know what I mean?
the Phil Walker Model 1, the Phil Walker Model 2, the Model 3.
Yeah, so little Johnny's starting out on guitar. Oh, we've got the turd, or we've got the turd glitter model. Which one would you like? The turd glitter models are £10 extra.
Yeah,
you get strings with that one.
I think it was that. It was just an effort to clarify things and make the whole range a little bit more concise. But in doing so, actually, it just confused people even more.
It's confusing.
We were so used to the old model of the standard and the deluxe and maybe the vintage. They got rid of the vintage and they started calling it the original as well because.
And the Vintera.
Vintera, that's new. It just
comes confused with all that.
It just comes back to that thing that Fender now are a massive, massive corporation. They're the biggest guitar company in the industry, and they make so many models. There's a YouTube video I did online. It's a few years out of date now, but I did it with Absolute Music, where I sat down with an example of every Fender guitar that was out there. So one example from every range, and there ended up being about probably 15, 16 guitars. So at that time there was maybe 15 or 16 different series, different ranges that work up through the price points. And I just went through everything just so that if people came in and asked that question, I could say, here, watch the video, because I would literally go through it with people every day. And the subtle changes that go from a guitar at £350 to one at £480 or one at £720, those small little jumps. There's so many.
My dad bought a Strat from Absolute Music about a year ago now, I think.
Is that the blue one he's got, Phil, that you...
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
it was
lovely, that is.
He wanted a blue one. It was Tide Pool Blue, I think it's called. So we went to Absolute Music, and they had two on the wall. They had an American one and a Mexican one, and he said, well, we'll just, pick me the best playing one, which you think's the best. And it was the Mexican one. The American one was like, yes, all right, it didn't play quite as nice as the Mexican one. I mean, okay, maybe the parts may last slightly longer on the American one. I don't know. There's the same parts, the same tuners. I don't know. I mean, there's 500 quid difference in the guitars, and I picked the cheaper one. He would have bought the American one had it been a nicer playing guitar, but it wasn't.
That's the thing, isn't it? You say it's American, and people are like, "Oh, it's got to be better." It's like buying branded stuff from the supermarket. If it's like Tesco's own stuff, you're not going to think it's as good. But a lot of the time, it's just the same stuff. And I think maybe on those American ones, perhaps I'm not in the know with this, but do they spend more time on the attention to the frets? Do they make it, the playability better? Because I know all the hardware's the same, right?
No, it's not. It's not.
It's not.
No.
Well, my Strat I've got here, my number one's Japanese.
So. Yeah, this is another minefield. But obviously Fender, because their guitars have, Leo's idea was a production line guitar. It's not like a Gibson, which is more of Gibson's original idea was to make something that was more like furniture. It's a very different production process and harder to modify. The parts don't break down as easy. Where Fender, their whole ethos was to make a guitar that could be bolted together, could be modified easily, could be parts on it could be replaced if they wore out, and in that you've now got so many variations of all the hardware, all the pickups, the pick guards, the necks, the frets, like everything, and they're all interchangeable, but they are all different. There are differences, and maybe if you want to go down that rabbit hole, maybe we could do a podcast one day where
this would be
go
great.
into the differences, because it is. Yeah, there's massive differences, but also what Phil says is completely valid, because despite those differences on paper, it still comes back to that old thing of play the guitar, and if you like it and if it does it for you, that's the one for you. Like, too many people get bogged down in needing a certain spec sheet when actually if they just tried a couple of guitars, they may well have fallen in love with the guitar that's actually the cheaper model. It's something that I see guitar players
You should
torn
do it
between.
blindfolded.
Yeah, good way
Because
to
a
do
lot of people buy the name, don't they?
Shop
They
with
buy
their
where
eyes,
it's
yeah.
made.
Yeah.
Yeah. So blindfold people, and then they're just going to pick the guitar that's right for them and not what it says on the headstock.
Okay, well maybe we'll do that then. Maybe we'll. I've got something planned for next week, but maybe we'll do a podcast where we go into a Fender rabbit hole, like a production rabbit hole, where I just go into
That sounds good.
all the bits and
That'd be
pieces.
great.
One little tidbit that I always remember, and it's really interesting because obviously there's this big debate between Mexican Fenders and American Fenders. I googled it, and you can drive between the two factories in 3 hours, and I think it was 12 minutes. 3 hours, 12 minutes. That's how far the American factory and the Mexican factory are from each other. And I also have it on good authority that a very, very large percentage of the workers in the American factory are Mexican because they're so close to the Mexican border. So, but there are differences in the materials and the production process. So, yeah,
We'll save that for another podcast then. I think that would be great. I'd really enjoy that.
okay.
Okay, so but regarding our earlier discussion, I suppose there's our choices between the Strat and the Tele. So Phil's gone with his Strat today, Lee's gone with his Strat, and I've gone with my Tele. And again, it's not really a huge comparison between the two. It's just kind of what, as an individual, we prefer over the two single chord guitars. And I suppose it'd be great to hear everyone's thoughts on this. Anyone out there who's a Strat lover or a Tele lover or owns both and has some thoughts or experiences they would like to share with us, please write in. And at this point, I'll hand you over to Lee for the socials.
Or equally, actually, just going to add to that, if anyone out there absolutely hates Fender guitars, because that's a really rare thing.
We don't want to hear from them.
I'd be quite interested to hear from someone who really doesn't like them and tell us why. Because in all my time meeting different guitar players and working in retail, I rarely met anyone. I mean, they might have been coming in to the shop for a different reason, or they might be mainly a Les Paul guy or mainly a Ibanez guy or something. But I did never really meet anyone that doesn't like Fenders.
Well, there's two categories there, through my eyes. There's people that like Fenders, and then there are people that are wrong.
I completely agree with you, Phil.
What's the opposite of a Marmite guitar? Because Fender are that. They're not Marmite at all. It's like you either love it or you like it.
Well, they've got so much, obviously, unlike just the Strat and the Tele. Oh, that's my doorbell.
Oh.
Papa
Jones will come round to you.
I tell you what,
You're gonna
hold the
go answer
fire. I'm going to go on. I need to go and answer it.
Go for it. Right, while Chris is going to get his curry that's just turned up, we'll wrap up and we'll come back next week. So find us on Instagram. Look for Phil Walker Guitar, Lee Troy Guitar, and Chris Anthony Guitar. Find us on Facebook. You can look for Phil Walker Guitarist, Lee Williams Guitarist, and Chris Anthony Guitar. You can find the Story of Guitar Heroes by searching Story of Guitar Heroes on Instagram and Facebook, or head to the website www.storyguitarheroes.com. And of course, head over to YouTube, where you can look for Phil Walker Guitarist to check out all the behind the scenes of the show. And if you want to find that video that I was talking about, just look for Absolute Music's video channel and you can see it there. Next week, I've got something planned because I'm in the hot seat next week. And
indeed.
we kind of stumbled across this idea a couple of weeks ago. Let's do a Desert Island Discs Christmas edition. So just like our 50s edition, where we were doing 50s guitar-based choices.
Yes.
This has to be Christmas guitar-based choices. So we got to link.
We're all going to pick the same chuffing song, aren't we? I know we are.
Well, it's just like last time. We're going to have to do
Let's see.
two each, and bonus points for anyone who picks the most interesting. Chris, I'm coming back to you. You can't pick the one that you've already picked because you did Brenda Lee's Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree in 50s. So we want different choices, two each.
I got it. Can I use the remastered version?
No, no, you can't.
Okay.
You can't use the Mel and Kim version either.
All right, so do some research, chaps, and then next week we'll get together, record that, and that should be out just in time for Christmas.
Lovely.
Excellent. Right, I'm going to sign off and say ta-ta. My dog needs to go out for a wee, and so do I. So thanks for listening. Goodbye from Phil.
Cheers, guys. Cheers from Lee. Chris, you should wrap up the final words because it was your episode today. So
Well, thank you for everyone for listening in. I know obviously we're getting a good response so far from all the previous podcasts. So thank you to all our fans out there, and we're looking forward to prolonging this journey and making hundreds of episodes in the future as well. So until then, we'll see you next week.
In your bed. Come on, in your bed. In your bed. There you go.